Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for joining. Construction projects throughout the North Carolina area and in other places as well are causing prehistoric lands to now be exposed. They're washing out the rivers and the creeks to show the ancient cultures that lived here before we got here. And it's very interesting to see these ancient people's arts. You can see this mammoth represented here with the painted face. A lot of this stuff is very recent and it's all over the country right now because we are not really trying to take care of what is historically important. You can see how this little face in the red is represented with this very large headdress with all this paint and color on it. And of course, you can see this mammoth painted here with this very sharpened, napped edge. I want to show you a few of the archaeological evidence pieces that I have here that you guys can see. Show you a few napped edges on these artifacts to show you, if the paint and the coloration wasn't enough to actually see how these edges are napped and carved. This stuff has just little portraits of human beings on them, and we do have, of course, the petition going on right now to try to save these artifacts. And you might be able to recognize how this mammoth head is done, just kind of mirroring this larger piece that we see. Might be a little bit inverted there where the color is on the face of that other mammoth. But we probably have stacks of mammoths on top of each other. So the very top section is probably maybe a baby mammoth done. But the tool marks and the napped edges on these pottery artifacts are undeniable by archaeological standards, yet they're still ignored. And that's an issue. That's, of course, why we have the petition. That's, of course, why this channel is, it's an activism type of endeavor. It's not very popular amongst Department of Natural and Cultural Resources or with the state because it does rewrite a lot of the history that we think that we know about this land that we conquered just a little while ago. So as you guys know, this country is not very old. We are kind of new on the block here in the States. And before we were ever here, there were human beings here all over these rivers and all over these creeks. And now that these construction sites are being approved and destruction of our natural environment for highways here in North Carolina, there's a big fight going on currently to save a site that was found during the construction of a highway. But a lot of these, you can see the headband, of course the black eye. You can see how the nose is portrayed in those little lips. So they are just little statues of human beings. They're little characters. They get very small. You can see how the eye carving is done, the nose and the mouth there, just in this small little pottery piece. There are little portraits and silhouettes. You can see how the eye is done, the nose and the mouth outlined with the white. All over this stone. There's more and more silhouettes and portraits, just like in a totem pole, how they have many different images on one. So just kind of looking here, you can see how the eye, the nose, and the open lips are done. There are several of these clay pottery artifacts still existing inside of the ground that we are trying to save. So I'll leave a link to the petition in the channel description or in the video description. I wanted to go over just a few of these with you today just to show you the colors and show you the creativity of these humans, these indigenous people that lived in the lands that we now are responsible for taking care of. And it's easy to kind of say, oh, it's just pareidolia, right? That's what these humans did. If you think about the definition of pareidolia, it's something that we gained from our ancestors, right? It's something that was brought kind kind of gained from the people that came before us. And of course, why would they have had pareidolia? Well, perhaps because they made this art, right? Thousands and thousands of us here in the United States have found out about this art and just want to share it. A lot of us are doing this just out of our own free will, out of the goodness, for lack of a better term, of our hearts. For me, my channel is not for profit. I don't accept donations normally. I don't want any money. I have my own career. I just try to do what is right. And there are several other people that are doing the same thing. Some of them kind of, they want a little bit of payment for their work, of course. And I don't hate on that as much as I used to. I used to really discourage people from trying to make this a for-profit thing. For the most part, I still do. But it's a lot to unpack and it's a lot to believe. But if we can just take a moment to understand that, hey, we've only been here for 300 years and that we took this land from other people, and that there were people here for tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years before we ever arrived. The people in North America were living in the Stone Age for much longer than the rest of Europe, right? They were living a natural way of life. They didn't have a lot of farming. They didn't have industry and things. They were still in the Stone Age when we colonized this area. So it's something to think about. The timelines of what we are now in is just a small little fraction of a huge, fantastically large span of time. Stone art in itself is a 300,000-year-old language, and probably longer than that. So the people that lived and worked with stone throughout their lives knew how to work materials to create purple, orange, yellow. They knew how to make art in a way that is almost invisible to us now. And so the people that have picked up on it, try to share it with you and hope that you can go out into your own construction sites and find these. Your own areas, your local areas that you live in. You will have plenty of ancient villages on any of the rivers and even the coastline. You can see just the carvings and the etchings on this pottery. It's very beautiful, lots of different colors, white, you can see them all. Sometimes, though, I explain things that you might be able to see, and you might see things that I don't see as well, because it is art, it is interpretive. But I wanted to demonstrate just a few of these today with you, just to give you a little bit of a look of what these artifacts from upwards of 10, 12, 20,000 years ago look like. These are the Paleo-Indian artifacts. They made so much more than weapons, and they knew stones, as I alluded to before, they knew stones so much more than we did. They had a better level of awareness of all the little etchings and the markings and the cracks and the colors than we would ever have, because we do not still survive on stones. We have our own things that we're worried about. You see how the eye is done, very detailed there in the black section with the circle on it, and how the nose is pointing out. So it is just a painted face character, but they were masters of stone, masters of art as well. They had cultural artifacts. They wanted to remember their family and their friends, just like we do today. They're leaders. They were a very peaceful people, at least these people were. They weren't into burying weapons, and they weren't into war. I just wanted to kind of show you just some of the archaeological evidence here on these napped scrapers that are simply made of pottery. These are kind of put together like books. You can see how there's pieces all over. And I know a lot of you guys know about this stuff already, but just wanted to maybe break open one of these with you just to show you how you can split these apart like books. They were put together, and after they were painted and after they were carved, pieces would go back on top of other pieces. You can see how this slices apart like sheets, and you can see the way that it's separated here. So we can perhaps take off another sheet since these are kind of wet. Just looking closely into the eye here, you can see how there is some kind of material, some kind of fibrous material put into this. And so let's take out your pareidolia skills there and take a peek at what that might represent. We can flip it over. You can see how this may make a more proportioned face with, of course, the details for that beautiful eye done in there. You can see, right? This is, as hard as it is to believe and as foreign as it might be, these are the artifacts of the Paleo-Americans, which are now being ignored and destroyed just so that our cities and our mayors and our construction companies can make some money, which is why it's dismissed, why they put a stigma about, you know, just seeing faces in clouds or faces in things. I want you guys to ask, why did the Mayan, the Aztec, why have every other culture produced faces on rocks? The Inca, Easter Island, right? You can see how we have a large point, kind of like a bird man. You can see the mouth, the eye, and the nose of the cartoon-shaped character right here with this headdress on. This is indigenous art. You can see how the left-hand side is showing the mammoth with the mammoth hump on the top. You might see a ridge eye under here, and every time when you look under that ridge, you will see the pupil for that eye. You see how the little section right there is showing the pupil. You might wonder how I know about all this stuff, and that's because I've been studying it for 3 years, fighting for its acceptance, working with the community to try to get archaeological professionals to acknowledge this stuff. And so far, you know, I've gotten students that email me, I have professors that email me, but none of them really want to speak up because it is their careers on the line. Unfortunately, the way that archaeological professionals work in the United States is by reputation and by bad-mouthing each other and dismissing each other. It's a long, ongoing, horrible situation that really just leaves us in the dark. It leaves us without actually being able to learn the truth. And for what reason might you think? You know, just want you to think about why they wouldn't want you to know. I could give you some ideas of what I think. I think it's because if we knew, then they probably wouldn't be able to build anything, because human beings, we're all over the place. They have their artifacts everywhere. But it's kind of upsetting to me, so I'm sorry if I sound a little bit disenchanted. However, you know, it takes a minute, and I understand that you guys aren't able perhaps to see these right away, but it's quite simple once you are able to just kind of get your head away from what maybe you thought you knew, or what maybe is what is written, and move on to what you see, what you come up with. Because the evidence is very apparent. It's so obvious, and for a person trying to share this, it can become quite frustrating. So, as always, your support is extremely appreciated. As if without you guys, I wouldn't still be doing this. I would not have continued in doing this, and I think that I would have never found these types of artifacts that we are looking at today. And there is a way to fix this, and it's together. There is no possible way that any one person is going to be able to do this all by themselves. So the only way to really take care of this and to fix this is to make our legislation different so that we do historical surveys before these construction sites are approved. It's really about you guys caring. If you don't care and people just continue to not care about it, then it's just going to continue to happen. So if you do care and you do want to make a difference, I've offered the petition, like I said, and once enough people sign that, we can get some action over there at the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources here in North Carolina. I'm kind of begging you. I'm actually begging you to sign that petition, because here in a few weeks we're going to be, and I've proven before that I'm not afraid to go out to the city. I'm not afraid to go out and talk to these town managers. And I've shown with my own actions what I am willing to do for this endeavor by going out into the streets of Smithfield, talking to the town manager, talking to the local historian. You can see those videos on my live stream. I have local indigenous representatives that are rooting for me, that are also trying to help. One of the interviews for that is on the channel as well. You can find it by just searching Dr. Cavalier interview, where she talks about, how North Carolina says there are no mound builders, right? They deny that there were ever any mound builders here in North Carolina. Meanwhile, we have Town Creek, Indian Mound, which is a state park. It's a state park that has a mound in it that was, recreated after the original mound was destroyed. But they would like nothing more than to just have it all erased. They don't want any of the indigenous history to be a part of any type of curriculum. They don't want it to be talked about. And yeah, I can see conquerors' rights, for sure. I can understand that. I can understand that they want to keep on building and keep on making money. They want to sell these houses for as much as they possibly can, so they put them right up against these rivers and these creeks. And these rivers and creeks are exactly where the indigenous people lived. And so we can find all the artifacts very easily at these construction sites, at these housing developments that are being built. The other claim that archaeological professionals have is that artifacts are rare. Artifacts are not rare. Arrowheads from more modern indigenous groups could be rare, but artifacts themselves are not rare whatsoever. All you have to do, what's rare really, is American people going out into the rivers and the creeks and looking for them. That's what's rare. If you don't look for yourself, you'll never find them. The moment that you do, you'll see exactly what's going on. The first day, it takes one day at a construction site near a creek or a river. You look at the construction site itself, you find all the burn piles, you'll find all the old fireplaces, you'll find all the odd crystals. You go down to the creek and the river, and you might see the river and the creek washed out, getting wider and wider and wider. And off of those walls, you'll see the stratigraphy. You'll see the layers, the cultural layers. Another thing that they say is that the soil is too acidic here in North Carolina to have any wooden artifacts. That's a complete lie. The soil and the ground here in North Carolina, in my region, in the Piedmont region, is full of clay. And clay can preserve things for hundreds of thousands of years. Hundreds of thousands of years. The oldest wooden artifacts are like 500,000 years old. 480,000 years old are the oldest wooden artifacts because they were fortified in clay. Where I find my wooden artifacts, they're all packed in clay. All the stones are packed in clay. Everything was carefully and intentionally preserved so that one day we might find them. They did it for us so that we would know that they were there. Not just for me, not just for the community, for you too. The only thing that you have to do is go and look for yourself. You don't have to watch videos. You don't have to learn about it. You do not, the other myth, you don't have to be an expert to be able to identify an artifact. Artifacts are human-made. They're made by people just like you and me from ancient times, and there were billions and billions of those people. Billions and billions of artifacts. You just have to be a human. You just have to be able to look at something and say, yeah, I could see what this is, or I could see what that is. They called it the Stone Age for a reason, and that's because that was the media, not just for their weapons, but for their art, for their cultural awareness. What's another myth that North Carolina archaeological professionals like to say? Well, I guess we'll end on kind of where we started, the pareidolia excuse. Every single other culture has created faces on rocks. Why would our indigenous people not, right? Why would we dismiss a face on a stone because it's from North America, but then accept faces on rocks in every other place of the world, including Mexico, South America, Poland, Germany, Russia, Japan, Indonesia, everywhere else in the world, right? Every other single place. It's just what they did. It's what they did. And we do not have to be careful about the pareidolia excuse, because it's a stigma. It's an excuse, is all it is. The people that I know that do this art, including myself, we don't see faces in the clouds. We don't see faces in our oatmeal or on our toast. That's not a thing that we're afflicted with. We know archaeology. We know what the local styles are for our areas. Now here in North Carolina, I'm an expert in North Carolina, but there are people in Vermont, there are people in Washington State, out in the Pacific Northwest, that become experts in their own local styles. In California, there's a whole different style. In Utah, there's a different style. Out in Arizona, there's different characters and different styles. And that's just the way art is. So I want you guys, if you're really into this and you really want to know the truth, do your own research, study up, and find out what portable art and rock art is really, because it does get a little frustrating when people just try to make up stories and just try to come up with ideas about the way that the indigenous people thought, how they lived, what they valued. When we have this knowledge and we have these artifacts, we can learn it from the source. We can literally see it with our own eyes, what's really going on. And if more people get into this and more people start learning about it, we could really probably become better human beings. At least take better care of the land that we are now in charge of, that we now shepherd. Whereas currently, we're just destroying everything. And for the name of profit, right? So it's going to take every single one of us to do this. No one person, no one group, even this rock art community, which comprises maybe 50, 60 people. No one person can do it themselves. So you creators that are doing this, I'm pushing you. Keep on establishing those repeating patterns. Keep on providing the evidence that you're providing. Keep an open mind to naysayers. And starting a channel, you could probably get a lot of hate. I know I do, or I have. Not so much anymore, but it was pretty rough at the beginning. You're going to get that. You're going to get people who are just so appalled and upset at the fact that you're changing the whole paradigm of what they think and what they thought. They're interested in archaeological evidence. They're interested in indigenous Americans and their lifestyles, the people that lived in their own areas. And they're learning from people who don't have an idea about anything other than arrowheads. And that's a problem. And that's why this whole movement has gotten so much attention. We've won over a lot of people. and more are to come. But it's going to take every single one of us, right? So I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.